strike in Doha, a long-form investigation into the attempted attack on Palestinian negotiators and its regional fallout on the 9th to the 11th of September 2025. Several explosions were reported in Doha's Qatar Legtafia area. International and regional news outlets reported that the blasts struck a residential compound used to host Palestinian political leaders, reportedly while a negotiating delegation was in Doha for ceasefire talks, killing several people and wounding others. Qatar condemned the attack as a breach of its sovereignty, and international reactions ranged from U.S. expressions of concern to strong condemnation across the Gulf and in international forums. Hamas characterized the attack as an assassination attempt designed to derail ongoing negotiations. Israeli officials have been reported as saying the strike targeted senior leaders. The incident represents a dramatic escalation. A strike inside the territory of a state that has been serving as a mediator between Israel and Hamas. Reuters. This article reviews the reporting, unpacks the political and security context, outlines the types of intelligence and verification generally relied upon for such high-value targeting at a high, non-operational level, addresses the legal and diplomatic ramifications and maps likely regional consequences. What happened? Publicly reported facts. Multiple international news agencies reported explosions in the Qatar Legtafia area of Doha on the evening of the 9th of September 2025. Witnesses described plumes of smoke and emergency services converging on the scene. The affected structure was widely described as a residential compound adjacent to a petrol station and noted as one that had hosted Palestinian political figures. Qatar said several people were killed, including a Qatari security official, while Palestinian groups said some Hamas members had been killed. Initial reporting indicated that the strike took place at a time when a negotiating delegation was in Doha to review ceasefire proposals. Reuters, Hamas and other Palestinian spokespeople described the incident as an assassination attempt against the negotiating team and said that the attack was intended to torpedo the negotiating process. Hamas also reported that several of its members had been killed while asserting that senior negotiators survived. Qatar's officials publicly condemned the strike as a violation of their sovereignty and a dangerous escalation. The United Nations and several countries called for de-escalation and emphasized the importance of protecting diplomatic spaces and mediation channels. Al Jazeera. Independent reporting noted that the residential compound had been under continuous guard by Qatar's Emiri Guard since the Gaza war began. A fact commentators flagged as relevant to questions about operational access surveillance and the security environment around high-value persons in Doha. The compound's proximity to a petrol station was repeatedly mentioned in dispatches because of the visible damage and witness accounts. The Times of Israel. What the reporting does and does not say. But reputable outlets Reuters, AP, Al Jazeera, Times of Israel and others have provided real-time reporting, witness testimony, Statements by Hamas and Qatari officials, casualty figures released by authorities, and diplomatic responses, where outlets have reported claims about perpetrators or the weapons used. They have generally attributed those claims to unnamed officials or to Israeli officials, and framed them as assertions rather than independently verified facts. Several summary points follow. Casualty and damage reports. Multiple outlets reported a handful of deaths and injuries, and visible damage to buildings near a petrol station in Qatar Leg Doha. Qatar confirmed fatalities and condemned the strike. Al Jazeera targeting claim. Some Israeli sources and anonymous officials quoted by media said the strike targeted senior Hamas leaders, including known negotiators. Hamas denies that senior negotiators were killed, though it said several of its members were. These remain contested public claims. The Times of Israel. Operational specifics. Media reports have referenced the difficulty of a strike at that range and speculated about means of delivery. Airstrike versus long-range missile versus standoff munition. Sometimes discussing mid-air refueling and precision weapons. These accounts are presented as analysis or sourced to anonymous officials, and they vary between outlets. Independent verification of exact delivery methods and ordnance has not been publicly disclosed, in a way that would allow authoritative confirmation. Given the sensitive nature of military operations, much of the detailed operational information remains classified or disputed in open report. Because of the sensitivity and potential for harm, it's important to treat claims about precise weapons, numbers, media, misinformation, and the information battlefield. In events like this, the information environment becomes an important battlefield. Key observations from media analysis. Rapid reporting versus verification. News agencies raced to report breaking events. Initial details often changed as new information emerged. That is normal, but it means readers should treat early reports as provisional. Attribution disputes. Attribution naming a perpetrator is often contested in the immediate aftermath. Governments may release assessed intelligence, while others contest the claims. Independent verification can lag behind political claims. Risk of amplifying unverified operational claims. Detailed technical claims about weapons and routes reported via anonymous officials may be repeated by outlets, but repeating such claims without clear attribution or corroboration risks amplifying information that might be politically motivated or inaccurate. Consumers of news would do well to look for corroborated reporting in reputable outlets and to track updates. As investigations proceed, Reuters, what independent investigation could and should do. For a responsible accounting, independent investigators, whether international bodies, neutral forensic teams, or credible journalistic organizations, would aim to gather and inspect physical evidence where possible. Analyze imagery, seismological or acoustic data where applicable. Interview witnesses and local security personnel. Cross-check claims from states with open-source intelligence and independent forensics. Produce transparent methodologies and publish findings subject to peer or editorial scrutiny. Such investigations are political and logistically challenging, especially when access is constrained. But they are essential to establishing a stable record of events and assigning lawful responsibility. Public reporting has repeatedly called for transparent investigation and restraint in the interim. Reuters' ethical and humanitarian considerations. Beyond geopolitics and intelligence, there are pressing human and ethical dimensions. Human cost. Any loss of civilian life, injury, or damage to civilian infrastructure is a humanitarian tragedy. Media accounts of funerals and mourning make that loss tangible and underscore the urgency of diplomatic solutions to prevent further suffering. Al Jazeera, protection of mediators and humanitarian actors, mediators, humanitarian staff, and neutral venues are essential to conflict resolution and relief. Protecting them is a moral and practical imperative to prevent humanitarian catastrophe. Avoiding normalization of strikes on diplomatic spaces. If strikes on mediators and negotiation venues become normalized, they could close off peaceful channels for preventing escalation and solving underlying disputes. In short, the humanitarian stakes are high. Protecting civilians and negotiating venues should be prioritized by all actors. Conclusion. A fragile moment for mediation and regional stability. The strikes in Doha, whatever the full operational truth later reveals, constitute a dramatic event with immediate diplomatic, legal, and humanitarian reverberations. Media reporting has sketched the immediate facts: explosions in a district of Doha, casualties, condemnation by Qatar and regional actors, and assertions about targeted Palestinian figures, but key operational details and complete forensic confirmation remain contested or classified in public sources. The most responsible public posture, one compatible with international legal norms and humanitarian imperatives, is to press for transparent investigation, protect mediation channels, and pursue de-escalation. The incident will likely be studied by diplomats, legal scholars, and security analysts. For its implications on the norms of mediation and state conduct, it underscores how fragile negotiated pathways can be, how quickly regional calculations can shift, and how essential it is for the international community to maintain spaces for peaceful conflict resolution. Sources: representative reporting used in this piece. Reuters: Israel targets Hamas leadership in military strikes on Qatar. Officials say. Reuters: Al Jazeera. Hamas leadership survived Israel's assassination bid in Doha. Official: Al Jazeera. Associated Press. Qatar's premier accuses Israel of not caring about hostages, but vows to keep pressing for peace. AP News. Times of Israel. Coverage and live blog on the Doha strike and subsequent statements. The Times of Israel. The Guardian analysis and editorial commentary on regional implications and changing threat perceptions. The Guardian